Are you looking to get on the road to your dream career? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Mentor Select Podcast with your host, Derek Phillips. Always stay up to date on social media at Mentor Select and online at mentorselect.com. Here's your host of the Mentor Select Podcast, Derek Phillips.
Welcome to episode 60 of the Mentor Select Podcast. We really appreciate you joining us this week. You won't be disappointed because we have a fantastic show ahead. If you have not had opportunity to like, subscribe, or share the Mentor Select Podcast, please do so that your friends, family can benefit from the high quality virtual mentorship that our guest mentors provide every week. In addition, don't forget to pick up my book, Poverty Powerball, if you haven't had a chance to yet. It's available on Amazon for $12. I really appreciate your support. It's my goal to help people break the poverty mindset, especially teens and young adults. I think that book really could serve them well. Anyone, but certainly teens and young adults can really benefit from that book and start incorporating the lessons that I share early on in their adult life. Today we have a great show for you. As I mentioned, Tracy Timm. She is an alum from Yale University. Yes, the Yale, as in the Ivy League school, university. And Tracy, she is following her purpose of helping other people discover their passion and purpose in life and career. And she has a whole business helping people do just that. But I'm not going to mess up the details. I want to let you listen to Tracy as she tells you what all her company offers and also shares her journey of how she went from working on Wall Street to helping people fulfill their personal and professional dreams. So let's get to the interview. Today we have Tracy Timm on the Mentor Select Podcast. Welcome, Tracy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It is a Wednesday in my world. It is every bit of a Wednesday. So we've got the entrepreneurial ups and downs that come and go. But I'll tell you what, I've had some really awesome conversations today. Okay. And it's always one person a day that just reminds me why I do what I do and what the purpose and passion is behind it. So I'm excited for this conversation as well.
Fantastic. Well, we're excited for you to share your wisdom with the listeners. So let's get into it. Well, Tracy, on the Mentor Select Podcast, we like to get to know our guest mentors better. So would you mind sharing something with us that most people don't know about you? It's a fun fact.
Ooh. Okay, this is going to sound really ridiculous, but I'm going to say the fun fact is that I do own pants. If you know me and you see me out in the world, it is highly likely that I'm wearing a maxi dress and something that looks like a pair of Jesus sandals. Like that's my go-to sort of like
comfort.
Yes, it's comfortable. It's one piece. I'm super like easy going when it comes to that stuff. So just like put it on and go in the morning. And I came into my office and one of my girls that works with me was like, "Oh my God, I wore yoga clothes the other day." And she's like, "Oh, you own pants?" I'm like, so apparently that's a little known fact about me. And that's honestly the first thing that came to my mind.
All right. Hey, now we know. We feel special that we know your secret.
Perfect.
Fantastic. So Tracy, on the Mentor Select Podcast, we encourage our listeners to follow their passions because we believe ultimately it would lead them to their dream career. So you can tell us how you're following your passions.
Yeah. So I really feel like my work in the least cheesy way possible is a calling and a purpose that aligns with things I feel passionate about. Okay. And the reason that I make that distinction is because I think there's a lot of pressure in our society for figure out your passion. Like what's your one thing that you feel really passionately about. Right. And I used to feel so much anxiety because I just didn't know. I was not one of those kids that's like, I knew I'm going to be a pilot from 5 years old, or I'm going to be an astronaut or what. Like I was that kid that like got good grades and checked all the boxes and was an athlete. And if I was going to be an athlete, I was going to be the best, I was the achiever kid.
Okay.
Really the one that had an idea of what my life and my passion was going to look like. So now fast forward all the way from confused tiny Tracy to now slightly less confused, slightly larger Tracy, is so I run a career clarity business. So our entire business is helping other people gain the clarity that they're seeking in their career to feel like they're living on mission and on purpose as they make their decisions throughout their career journey. And we really find that the big thing that's holding people back, either from leaving jobs that they hate or from pursuing something that they love or advocating for themselves, is they just don't have the clarity that they need to feel confident in taking action. And without confidence, it's really hard to have courage. And without courage, it's really hard to take action consistently. Right. So we find if we dial it all the way back to what's the thing that we can empower people with the most, I think from my own experience and from that of the people that we serve, it's that clarity of knowing, of deeply knowing and feeling like what you know about yourself and about the world and about where you add maximum value, and the alignment of those things really, really deeply empowers people to then pursue careers with meaning and with purpose.
Wow. Yeah, I totally agree. Clarity is very important. In the Army, we used to say, clear as mud. So if it's clear as mud, then we're in trouble. But if it's crystal clear, then we're good. We know which direction we're going, and we're confident that we're going to be successful when we're going there. So I guess we'll definitely dive deeper into just your whole process, but let's kind of get to understand your journey more. So you said growing up, you got good grades or competitive. Tell us what was life like for you growing up?
Yeah, I tell people all the time I was a black belt box checker. Like if you put something in front of me that needed to be checked off, like you need all A's, or you need to be first chair, or you need to be varsity on this team, or whatever, insert, achievement X, I checked freaking boxes like it was my job.
All right.
So I was a good kid. I never messed around. I didn't drink until college. Like I towed the freaking line to the point where, I was sort of like, how you could be like friends with everybody and not in any one particular group. You're kind of like the adapter, the chameleon of school. Right. And because of that, everybody sort of thought I was always included, but I was always not. So, high school was not my favorite memory by any stretch, but I really did benefit from that discipline from an early age. And from keeping myself super duper busy and quite frankly, being kept busy. I feel like our generation, so I'm 31, I'll be 32 later this year. And our generation were busy kids. Like we're going and doing and constantly either practicing an instrument or playing a sport or doing Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts or, studying or whatever. And I remember thinking like, what is downtime? Like who has that? Because if I wasn't playing softball, I was playing basketball. If I wasn't playing basketball, I was practicing the saxophone. If I wasn't practicing saxophone, I was, doing flashcards or what, right? Like there was always something to be done. And so because of that, I got great grades and I was varsity on the softball team from my freshman year on. And so I got recruited at some pretty great schools, and I had a lot of good opportunities because I had the grades to have them. And so growing up in Flower Mound, Texas, I never really thought that like an Ivy League school or anything similar was even on the radar. But it ended up becoming that. And so I got through the recruiting process, got to go to Yale.
Wow.
And yeah, it was, total out of body experience. I remember the first time being there being like, oh my God, these are my people. Like they're big nerds and they stay up at night, like talking about like political, religious philosophy. And like they, it was like my people. Plus,
you found your tribe.
Super work hard, play hard culture too. Okay. So like those people can party. Oh my God.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. So we, worked hard and learned, and we got to learn from really amazing people. But then at the end of the day, like we had a lot of fun while we were there. So that was a really formative experience. It really opened my eyes to a lot of different things in the world. And, coming from a smaller town in Texas, not, tiny by any means, but then going to a big international private school.
Right.
It was a totally different life experience. It put a lot of things into perspective. It's made me start to question things, and it really gave me a more global view of people in general. And it's also where I discovered how much I love people. So I ended up studying psychology there and absolutely fell in love with it.
Wow.
So had a pretty positive college experience overall. It was the first time I quit something meaningful. I ended up quitting softball part of the way through, which I know if you're a varsity athlete and you're listening to this, there's probably like a hissing noise coming out of you right now because it's not exactly the best thing to do if you're going to a school particularly to play. But it was the first time that I quit something that I no longer felt excited or passionate about.
Okay.
And I think that action really primed me to be very aware of how I felt about doing certain things and more in tune with my intuition about where I needed to be and what was no longer serving me. So in a lot of ways, I think quitting college, quitting softball in college really led to my ability to analyze where I was in my career later on, which I did end up quitting a very lucrative and very like perfect on paper looking job.
Okay.
Because my gut and my heart and my body were just physically in pain all the time. And I know there's probably listeners who are going like, yes, I know that misery feeling that you just drag yourself into work every day and you come home a shell of yourself and your family knows that you're, grumpy dad when it's Tuesday and, all that stuff. So Yale was a really good formative experience and it left me with this degree I love, but really not knowing how I was going to apply it. And that's really where the story starts.
All right. So for some of the listeners, maybe they're listening or their kids have aspirations to go to Ivy League school.
Sure. Yeah.
What's some tips you'll give them? Obviously, you got to have good
question.
grades and SATs and all that, but I'm sure it's...
Yeah. So first and foremost, like you gotta step up when it comes to school. They have really high expectations for your academics, but I think more so from the perspective of somebody who went to school there and from talking to people who do admissions and things like that. First and foremost, when a school only accepts like 6 or 7% of the people who apply, let's be totally honest, it's a crapshoot. It's a freaking crapshoot. Like the reason that I got in, truly, I did have the grades. I did, I was of the right stuff, if you will.
Right.
But it was because I got recruited. And so if you're, recruited by an athletic team there, then you definitely get accepted because the team needs you. Right. So I think that you have to figure out how you, in whatever way, add value and diversity to a student body.
Okay.
So how would you being there make everybody else's experience better? And there's a lot of ways to do that. The most consistent that I saw was really dedicating yourself to something and showing that you could stick with it over time. Okay. So athlete is a good example of that. Even if you, Boy Scouts is a great example of that. If you actually go all the way through Boy Scouts, you know how few people who actually start Boy Scouts get their Eagle Scout? It's a minute percentage, right? Or somebody who like picked up piano when they were little and they're still dedicated to it and still do lessons to this day. That shows the school that you have the dedication that it takes to excel in that type of environment. And it shows them that you can work hard, right? And that's really, in addition to the diversity of the student body, they're looking for that as well. So I would figure out like what truly makes you unique and special from a human perspective, and then realize the person reading your application is a human being.
Not a robot, a computer.
Not a robot, right? They're not looking at all the numbers. They're not looking, they want to read something that you wrote or that you said that touches their heart and makes them see you as a human being who needs to be a part of what they're putting together. So that might sound like vague advice, but I think
I think it was very specific and insightful.
Good. You're the first person to ever ask me that. Can I just tell you? I love that.
I'm sure a lot of people are curious, but yeah, we just, daughter was born. She's 8 weeks now.
Oh my gosh.
That's some good, I'm taking notes. So I'll definitely
keep that in mind. Are you even sleeping at this point?
I'm sleeping better. My wife does most of the night feeding, so I'm getting off now.
Man, good for you. Congratulations.
I'm going to make sure we use that advice so we can keep our daughter on the right track and have her commit to something.
You just keep that girl busy.
Right. That's great. Well, definitely thanks for that advice.
Sure.
And in terms of, so once you graduated Yale, what was
Mm-hmm.
the next step for you?
Yeah. So the reason that I do what I do now, and I feel so purposeful and passionate about helping people really identify what their niche is, where literally meaning where they can add maximum value, where they can realize the majority or all of their potential, is because people, and I'm going to say people like me, and I'm also talking to you guys out there who just identify with being either an overachiever or a perfectionist or a performer, in the sense that if somebody put a goal out there, you were going to do it. If you need to get an A, you got an A plus. If like if you were constantly just trying to perform, it really, it's fascinating because those people can probably get by to a relative degree of success in lots of different places.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, because of that, because they're getting either positive feedback or they're being paid well, or they've, received some kind of accolade, or they've gotten quote unquote societally, they've been told you are successful. This is what success looks like. This is what successful people do. It's very hard to detach yourself from that,
Right.
even when you deeply feel misaligned with what you're doing. Like even when you hate it. So what happened to me was that graduating with a psychology degree was challenging, simply because if you don't want to be a counselor or a therapist, or you don't want to go into academia and get your PhD, nobody knows what to do with you. Like I was talking to career counselors and career services, and like, they were like, well, I can help you optimize your resume. And I'm like, for what? I don't even know what I want to do. So in lieu of having a vision of my own, I got really swept up in other people's visions. And what that ended up doing was I was, going to career fairs and going to info sessions and what have you. And so I got swept up in the frenzy that is financial recruiting, specifically working on Wall Street, on a trading floor, or in banking. And so I ended up accepting a job after going through the interview process and just being like, I just need a job. I just need a
Gotta pay bills.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm an only child. I was like, I got to take care of myself. Like we're the three musketeers. I don't want to move home. Like I don't want to, not be able to sustain my own living. And, I guess maybe proud and ego driven in that sense, which is maybe not how you want to make the majority of your career decisions, as witnessed by this story. But basically, yeah, I accepted a job working for an investment bank. We were working technically like on quote unquote Wall Street. We were based in Connecticut.
Okay.
And I worked on the trading floor. So my job was more in markets, on the market side. And I ended up getting placed on what's called a credit desk. So we were trading bonds and loans of companies. And specifically, my credit desk was focused on what's called high yield, or what people used to call in the 80s junk bonds. And so, yeah, I would go in every morning at like 6:30, and I'd leave every day at like 6:30 or 7. And, our morning meeting was every day at 7:30. And I'd spend the entire day, answering phones and facilitating trades. I was a salesperson.
Okay.
And I remember going into it, like thinking, maybe I can leverage psychology here a little bit, because sales is people, and
Right.
I have to have relationships with people. And then, I had a bit of a sales background. I was a Cutco knife girl in college, so I could sell, a knife to a housewife. And so clearly that meant I was capable of selling millions of dollars of bonds in a given day.
Absolutely. Same skill set.
So, I was just hoping I got lucky. Honestly, I was really hoping that I would like it, because nothing about what I had studied or done previously spoke to that being a good choice for me. And I did it out of fear. I did it out of scarcity. I did it, for what I look back on as the value set that I held very dear at that point, but fear-based, 100%.
Okay.
And so 2 years into it, and this is why I do what I do now, 2 years into it, I can't even exaggerate how much I don't even recognize that person anymore.
Wow.
Like I was a shell of myself. I was unhappy all the time. I came home every day upset about something that had happened, whether it was like a horrible interaction with a client, somebody yelled at me, I got a trade wrong. It's just like a really intense,
like a high stress job.
And then there's just no mercy on the trading floor either. It's like they will pick apart every little thing you do, because everybody's so unhappy that they've got to like pick apart, it's just
take it out on everyone else. Huh?
A scary place. Yeah. And I'm like a pretty happy person. Like I like to laugh. I like to have fun. And it's just a darkness that comes over you when you go there for enough days in a row. And so anyway, probably 2.5 years later, I was unhappy to like a very like depressed degree.
Wow.
And I started to sort of pull my head up and say like, okay, what's really going on here? And I think, if you're listening to this and you're really unhappy in your job, you've probably gone through a couple of realizations, or maybe you're in the midst of one of these realizations right now. So the first thing was, I don't like this. And then you have to be like, oh shit, like, can I not like this? Like, am I allowed to not like this? I thought I had to get this right. If I don't get this right, then something about my career is going to be totally screwed up from the get-go and I'm going to have to start from scratch. And then one day you get miserable enough that you're like, yeah, I don't like this. And that's okay. And that's realization number 2, right? So then realization number 2, it's okay, well, I don't like this and that's okay. So you feel some relief for a little bit. But then very quickly comes realization number 3, which is like, oh Lord, I have to do something about this. Like, what am I going to do instead? Which is followed very quickly by realization number 4, which is, I have no idea what I would do instead. This is all I've done. This is all I know. This is what I studied. I mean, insert, random thing, right? That's holding back a limitation that's in your head. And so I finally got to the point where I was okay with not liking it. I was okay with it being okay. And I was very aware that I needed to do something to fix it. But I was stuck on the clarity of knowing what it was that I would do instead. There was nothing that like deeply called to me. There was nothing I had heard of that other people did that I wanted to do. There's nothing at the bank that really seemed obvious to transition into. And so I called up the first people that made sense after my parents, which was my university. And I just said, hey, like I'm a couple years out of school. The only thing keeping me at this job is just not knowing what I want to do instead. Do you guys have any programs or services that provide clarity? Not job search advice, not resume updates, not, a conversation to connect with an alumni. Like I want clarity. How can you help me? And maybe I should have been more surprised or less surprised, but I was shocked that nobody's doing that. Like even if you Google career clarity or clarity in your career or what to do when you don't know what to do, like there are a handful of books about it. But if you look at the covers, like they were written in the 80s. Like there are not a lot of people who are addressing this at this phase of life. And I just remember a light bulb going off and thinking like, A, I can't be the only one who's going through this. It's just not possible.
That aha moment.
Yeah. And B, okay, if that's the case, then there's a whole huge group of us that are being really underserved. And I didn't really jump this far at the time, but my next thought was, okay, I'm going to see if I can figure it out for myself. Like my life matters enough to me. And I feel like life is short enough that if you're going to work, then freaking hell, you might as well like it. It might as well serve a purpose for you or for somebody. And I wasn't doing that in either regard. I was neither receiving value from my job nor giving value in a way that felt meaningful. So I left and I quit without a plan. So PSA for that. Don't
of courage.
Do that.
Don't do that.
You know what though? I will say this. What I did when I quit, and I want people to really deeply listen to this, because one of the biggest fears that I hear from people is like, I can't let anybody at my office know that I don't want to be here. Here's the reality, folks. They already know.
Oh yeah, it's obvious.
It is written on your face.
Yep.
That you do not want to be there. Even if you think you're hiding it extraordinarily well, you are not.
I agree.
And the reality is you will be found out if you haven't already. And it's up to you to decide, do you want to be in the driver's seat or do you want to give that control to somebody else? Because if you don't like your job and while you're still in control, you have options. You can leave on your terms. You can transition on your terms. But if you give the control to somebody else, aka you let your misery go long enough that you start to suck at your job, like you get fired.
Yeah.
And I know that from experience because you think you learn something and sometimes life has to teach it to you a couple times. So a job that I had after Wall Street, I took out of fear and I got fired because I was terrible at it and because I hated it.
Yeah, I can relate.
You know what I'm saying? So, that was the thing. So it truly, the fear is what keeps us stuck.
Right.
It's fear. Right? It's always, and Elizabeth Gilbert says this, it's almost always and only fear that's keeping us stuck or keeping us from accessing our creativity or what have you. So anyway, the point of all that is that when I quit, what I did was tell my senior leader and my sales partner that I was miserable and like something had to change. And if nothing changed, I was leaving.
Okay.
And I did it literally, Darish. I literally thought I was going to turn around and see like my computer screen go black and somebody from HR
escort you out.
I thought that was it. Like the reaping. And it didn't happen. I was amazed. And because I was open and honest with them, they helped me. They actually said, okay, well, let's give you some options. Like if we need you here, like, so, and listen, your company will say that to you unless you're really slacking off because they're not prepared for you to leave sight unseen, right? Like they don't know what to do without you in the next 2 weeks or 2 months. Exactly. So they're like, we need you. Please stay at least until you've figured out what you want to do. You can do the bare minimum. We'll take care of you. We'll give you classes if you want. We'll transition you through HR and you can do something else if you want, or you can just stay on the desk you're at and just like get by. But please don't just go. And I'll tell you, I've given that advice to other people and I've told them that story. And I have clients who do that. I have one who literally just did it. And now senior leaders in her company are making introductions for her to other companies.
Wow.
Because they know that she wants to go. They know that what she's doing there isn't well aligned and they don't have a function that does align with what she wants to do. So people who she's made relationships with are helping her transition. And if she hadn't told them, if she had been too afraid, she would never have those opportunities. So you'd be kind of amazed at what the truth will set you free. Right?
It will. It's saying the closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Yes. Right. And that goes back to like Wayne Gretzky, right? Like you miss 100% of the shot you don't take. And that was a shot I took and it panned out for me. What I ended up doing was quitting that job. I took like basically every penny I had in savings and I invested in going on a semester at sea.
Okay.
And if you don't know what that program is and you're listening,
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, this is something you need to add on your list for your daughter.
All right.
Well, and you guys as a family can go as soon as you're 40 or older.
Okay.
So semester at sea is traditionally an undergraduate study abroad program, except that instead of living like for 6 months in Barcelona or 6 months in Rome or what have you, you live on a ship with like 700 other students and you travel around the world together. So when you're on the boat, you're taking classes, like A and B day classes. And then when you're off, you're just traveling. So I went once around the world backwards, which is the way to do it because you gain an hour each time you go over a date line. But I saw like, I think 30 countries, took some classes that I was interested in, and I got to meet amazing mentors and entrepreneurs, and I put myself in a place for opportunity and possibility to happen. Okay. And I did that really consciously. Now, not everybody's going to have maybe a Wall Street savings to spend towards, 6 months of traveling and whatever, right? But you do have options, and you probably have more than you think you do to get away from the toxicity of mindset that you're in right now if you hate your job, and clear the mechanism and get back to connecting to who you really are and put yourself in a place where you find the mentors and the influencers and the community that remind you about the best things you have to offer.
Right. So is that what led to that clarity for you?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I actually met some amazing mentors. I can think of a handful of them off the top of my head. Almost every one of them was from that trip. And they really illuminated for me like how my nature was being so undervalued in the environment that I had put myself in. And you'll find like the easiest way to think about it is animals. So like imagine a cow like eating grass and, hanging out and it's sunny and, mooing and there's other cows around and like happy days. Like that's a cow's environment, right? Well, if you pick up a cow and drop it in the ocean, you would never be like, well, that cow's really unsuccessful because it's not swimming like a dolphin and, making noises like a dolphin and eating fish. You'd be like, that cow is completely out of its element, to where any and all of its strengths have now immediately become not only weaknesses, but liabilities.
Right.
every one of us does that in our career at least once, if not for the entirety of our career, unless somebody like really shakes us and wakes us up. And for me, that big shift of realizing I wasn't a failure, or I wasn't going to never be successful because I decided to turn away from, quote, what successful people do, AKA a place where you can make a lot of money. Right.
Right.
And I wasn't going to have to trade income for impact my whole life, or have to do something that was completely outside of my comfort zone and alignment and values and nature just to be successful. That in fact, I had just been a cow swimming around in the ocean. And I needed to find the environment that worked well for me. And you know what? I use this example all the time because I think it makes really logical sense for people. Think about Olympic athletes. Like every single one of us, I believe, has an Olympic gold medal level job or role or set of responsibilities or vocation, if you will, even. The only issue is we're just playing someone else's right now. Right? Like you would never, ever, ever take Michael Phelps and Usain Bolt off them and be like, you're both Olympic athletes, you're both gold medalists, like achieve. But we do that all the time professionally. We're like, oh, I'm smart, I'm a high achiever, I can be successful here. Well, the reality is probably yes to some extent. And I bet you those two, because they're conditioned athletes, could compete, maybe even at a pretty high level, but they're never going to get the gold medal. They're never going to reach their fullest potential until they're in the environment that aligns with what I call your now, your nature, and your nurture. So your values, your gifts, and your abilities. Right. That's the sweet spot. So I'll tell you what, I had to have some really incredible mentors, like literally pull the plug out of the back of my head so that I exited the matrix and show me that like I was living someone else's life.
Hard reset.
Hard reset. Yes. I hit Control-Alt-Delete on my life and I needed the reset really badly. Some people don't. Some people like haven't experienced that much professional, I'm going to call it trauma, but I'm going to be light about that word because I know people take that word very seriously. But truly at the end of the day, if you've been really unhappy doing something and you've been forcing yourself to go there for 8 hours a day, like you've created a traumatic situation for yourself, and it's going to take some resetting or some unlearning or just some grace.
I
for yourself.
Totally agree. And that's something I learned, where when you're doing something that's not within your natural ability, something that your unique gift, then it's going to affect your self-confidence, because you're not going to be able to do it like you said, at an Olympic gold medal level, versus if you're doing something that you were born to do. And I've learned that firsthand, where now I'm doing like podcasting and writing books and all these things where I'm loving it. It energizes me, and I'm doing it at such a high level where people are like, wow, how are you doing that? But the job that I hated, I was barely making it. Like just barely, like, man, I'm working hard at it, but it's just not clicking.
Yes. And you have to release that sense of this is the only way to be successful.
Right.
Like this is, and it's so much easier said than done.
Right.
So much easier for us to talk about it in theory than it is for somebody to trudge through living that reality. But I have to say, at the end of the day, like I wanted to give it the good old college try, at least try to find what my Olympic gold medal level event was, because the biggest regret of dying people, the number one regret of people who are at the end of their life, who actually have the ability to share their regrets, is I wish I had had the courage to live a life that was true to myself.
Yep.
And not one that simply aligned with other people's expectations. That's the number one regret. And so truly, I live my life trying to avoid that. and I know that might sound funny, but can you think of anything worse than looking back on your whole life and going, I was never once myself. I never gave myself a shot. I was too afraid to insert thing, to fail. I was too afraid to disappoint people. I was too afraid to not do what my parents did. I was too afraid to disappoint my wife.
I was too safe.
Oh, it breaks my heart, because I now that I have this formula for clarity that is literally step by step, I show it to people and they see it and they still the fear, the crippling nature that fear causes, the indecision, the inaction, still keeps them from embracing that possibility. And it is really hard to watch. But, Derek will tell you guys, I will tell you that basically, if you're hearing this and you're going like, I could never do that she's lying, that's not true, but whatever, right? It's because you're on one side of a very large canyon and Derek and I are on the other. They're the same level. All we did was jump.
Right.
And I guarantee you we jumped and somebody like caught us along the way, or somebody created like a line of bodies that stretched over the canyon and we got to walk over it, or it was painful. But the only difference is that we took that quote unquote leap. And now we're on the other side going, it's really nice over here. Like it sucked to get from where you are to here, but we like it a lot. Like it's worth it. It's worth it.
Right.
Because that's the other misconception too, that like when you find the thing you love, or when you find something you feel purposeful about, that it's like a cakewalk.
Easy breezy.
Oh my God. If that was the case, man, if I had known entrepreneurship was going to be as hard or as taxing or as challenging or as grueling as it is, I don't know if I would have jumped. But at the same time, I'm so happy that I did, because I will never have to look back in my life and wonder what if.
Right.
So that's really, and that was probably like the longest soliloquy that didn't even really answer a question you asked.
You answered a lot of questions I was anticipating next, and you answered them. So
that was really the semester at Sea breakthrough. And obviously like that did not all come in 4 months. Like that's me looking back at that experience literally 6 years later and figuring out what I deeply did experience and learn from it. And then I've been applying those principles and my own learning to developing a program, a strategy, a framework that could work for anybody to unleash their potential and to live their career and their life at their highest level.
Okay. So someone say, a listeners hearing you now say, hey, I want to experience that. What's the process for how do you help them find that career sweet spot?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if that's something that you really want to go super deep into, I am going to have a link at the end of the podcast that I'll share.
Okay.
That's going to have literally a link to being able to contact me directly, being able to book a strategy call with my business, downloading a webinar on this exact topic. So we're going to get there. But just from a high level.
Yeah, definitely.
So I call this process the nth degree.
Okay.
And it's the nth degree because it's your limitless potential harnessed in a process. And it's also the degree that even if you went to college or trade school or any education level, that you probably didn't get, the degree in yourself, and the degree that facilitates easier decisions in life. And it's 5 steps. They all start with the letter N, which is also another play on words, which I love. I'm a big nerd and I love words. And I'm also writing a book, which we should talk about at some point, because I'm super curious what yours are about.
Okay.
So the 5 steps in the process are now, nature, and nurture, network, and navigate.
Okay.
And the first 3 steps, now, nature, and nurture, if you imagine those 3 in your mind's eye as a triple Venn diagram, so 3 circles that converge in the middle, that converging point, that nexus, that's your professional niche. So those first 3 steps really clarify now, which is your set of values and your commitments and your everything going on in your life right now. B, your nature, which is not only your gifts and talents, but also your personality and your behavior set. And then C, your nurture, which is everything else. So that's your knowledge, your skills, your expertise, all of your learned experience, both professional and education. And then also something I call your ninja skills, which is everything you learned outside of formal learning. And when you put those 3 things together, because it takes advantage of your values, so you care about it, and because it takes advantage of your gifts, so you're naturally inclined towards it, and because it takes advantage of your learned knowledge and skills and abilities, which means you're leveraging your experience, the combination of those 3 things literally cannot be replicated from person to person. It is your unique value add, and it's why It's how you can go from being a commodity to an irreplaceable asset profession.
Wow.
Which is really fun. Like when you think about it, like nobody has the same value set as you and the same nature as you and the same life experience as you.
Right.
You can put those together in a way that adds value professionally. You should garner the most value back, meaning salary, compensation, fulfillment, meaningfulness, love, right? Like you should be getting value back. And money is only one version of that value. Right. The last two steps are really how you then take that epiphany, if you will, of clarity, like I know what my niche is, and make that dream a reality. So network is the first part. It's literally telling, it's so simple. It's telling your niche to human beings, asking for help. I'll say that again. It's telling your niche to human beings and asking for help.
That's how it works. That's a secret.
That's a secret. And if you think that's obvious, I'm here to tell you that 9 out of 10 people I talk to are like, I have to talk to some, I can't just look on a job board. What? Like, and I get it. I do. I used to sit on job boards for hours, but it always left me like sucking my thumb and rocking back and forth because it's such a horrible experience because
in person.
Right, it's so anxiety inducing. It's like, well, there's a bazillion choices. And yet everything I'm scrolling through, which ends up being endless, sounds awful or doesn't sound like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Go do it. Go and try and do it now for like 5 minutes. It makes you want to run and hide. It's horrendous. So instead of that, we leverage what really works, which is conversations. And in fact, I think it's either Gallup or Business Insider. I always screw up the attribution of this statistic, but it's 75 to 80% of jobs in the US are acquired through some sort of networking channel, not through digital applications.
Yeah, I can believe
75%. Like crazy pants. So once you've started to have these strategic networking conversations and then specifically invested in creating career advocates, so people who are out there beating the drum for you, then you have to really test drive your assumptions. So this is when you start going into companies and shadowing or doing informational interviews or secret shopping or volunteering, or I mean, there's a bazillion ways to do that process, but that's the 5th step, and I call it navigate. And so once you've gone through all 5 of those things, you should be very aware of where your niche exists professionally and pursuing actual opportunities therein. That's the process.
Okay. That's great. You have that comprehensive process. I see I can provide that clarity and then give the people that courage to actually put it into action. So
yeah. And that's my goal really is like, let's have a proven process. Like, let's make the nth degree this generation's like, what color is your parachute? It's not about me. I love that I get to say I built it and discovered it. Like that feels very good because it's adding massive value to people's lives. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be the coach, I want this to be a strategy that people can come to without me. Right. And like do a home study course. They can read the book and put it into action. They can work with a coach that we certify. They can certainly work with me through this process. That's how we're, doing things right now. And we have a director of coaching and she facilitates our digital programs. Like, if you want to work with us, happy days, call me. But eventually I can't wait for this to be a movement and an idea that we can give to high school kids. We can give to college. We can give to moms coming back to the workforce. We can give to people who are veterans and transitioning back into corporate,
Then the impact is unlimited. Certainly.
That's what really drives me is that vision. I'm definitely a vision person. I don't know about you, but when it comes to like the tactical boots on the ground day to day, that's when I feel like at my worst. But man, you put me into like a brainstorm and like get excited about what could be. That's where I really add value and get excited. So I'm with you, man.
That's your Olympic gold medal.
I know. I'm like just trying to build a business big enough where I could just like, be the puppeteer and be the visionary and like speak and get everybody excited about this movement. And, and other people are able to then do the things that I'm not as good at or that, aren't energy rich to deliver, but is energy rich for them to do and living in their Olympic gold medal, genius zone. So yeah.
That is the key. So you mentioned something about a book you're working on. Tell us a little bit about
I'm
that.
writing my first book.
Oh, exciting.
My manuscript is literally due a week from today, and I'm 40,000 words in, and
wow.
so I don't have that much to go, but I'm so excited about it. It's literally, I'm not sure what the title is going to be 100% yet, but it is going to introduce the nth degree as a process to the masses. So I think we're going to call it something like career clarity, or the nth degree, or the proven process to making your dream a reality. Something, we'll see.
Something sexy.
Yeah, if you have suggestions for the title of this book, hit me up, because I am open to that. But yeah, I'm working with a publisher. I'm super happy with them and the process, and so it should come out mid 2020.
Fantastic.
Oh, I know, right?
Very excited for you.
I feel like a big kid. I'm like, I'm gonna have a book in a bookstore. Like, what is that? What is that?
That's a big deal. Certainly.
Unreal.
It all started with you, like you said, taking that leap.
You know what it started with? It started with being okay, not being okay.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, didn't you have a moment where you're like, I am not happy and I don't want to stay this way?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Right. And then you actually took action on that feeling. That's where it starts for anybody. And I hear this from people all the time. Like, how do I know when it's time to quit? Or, what should I do in X, Y, and Z scenario? Like, the reality is, if you're asking those questions, you already know the answer.
Right. It's just that fear holding you back.
Yeah. And that's all it is. And it's not even a real thing.
Yep. The boogeyman under the bed.
You actually wrote down like what you were afraid was going to happen if you were to quit. And then you figured out ways you can mitigate those things. Tim Ferriss calls this fear setting instead of goal setting. You'd actually find really easy ways to mitigate those risks that would alleviate a lot of the fear and anxiety that you're feeling.
Yeah.
So go watch his TED Talk. It's excellent. It's called Fear Setting. But yeah,
okay. I'm a big Tim Ferriss fan. I haven't seen this book. I haven't seen the TED Talk. I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Wow. Well, Tracy's given us a lot of great advice throughout this interview. As we get ready to wrap it up, what parting words of advice would you want to leave the listeners with? Pressure's on.
Parting words of advice. The only thing that's constant in life is change. And if you think that you're doing the safe thing by staying where you are and mitigating risk by not taking action, I think in a lot of ways that's actually the riskier choice, given the fact that life changes all the time. So I would advise people that to really evaluate life and their choices based on regrets, meaning there's scientifically only two types of regrets in the research. You can regret something you did, or you can regret something you didn't do. And actually the research shows that the extremity of the level of regret for things that you chose not to do, for inaction, is exponentially worse than if you tried and failed, or if you did something and you got in trouble, or if you started a business and it went horrible, or insert anything, right?
Anything, yeah.
And it's because the brain wants there to be a solution. And when you choose not to do something, the brain doesn't get its answer of what would have happened had you done that thing. And it's why we're haunted with what ifs and, shoulda, woulda, couldas and whatever.
Yeah, those are the worst.
Yes, for the rest of your life, because unless you take that action at some point, your brain is always subconsciously going to be thinking what would have happened and filling that in with the infinite possibilities of what could have happened. So the way that I negate that personally, and the way that I teach people to professionally negate that risk is if you really feel deeply that it'd be a good idea to do something, or that, fear is the only thing keeping you from saying yes, or taking a shot, or taking a risk, or even perceiving an opportunity as an opportunity and not a risk. Just ask yourself, like, am I going to regret this? am I going to regret not doing this? And generally speaking, if the answer is yes, like that's your sign to go. So that's what I would leave people with is like, if your gut's saying take action, just know that you'll never regret trying more than you'll regret not trying.
That's deep. I love it. I'm always asking myself is what's the worst can happen?
There you go. Yeah. I love that.
It's not death. Then, hey, let's do it. Let's go.
Let's give it a shot. Yeah. What doesn't kill you, right? It's so funny.
Right.
But in a lot of ways, it's true.
It is. So Tracy, how can the listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I went ahead and created a link just for listeners of the Mentor Select podcast. So if you go to tracytimm.com/mentor select. So
wow.
The name of the podcast, you know where to go. My name is spelled TracyTimm, both as in Mary. So tracytimm.com/mentor select. And I have a whole ton of goodies there. You can sign up for a clarity call directly with me or someone on my team. You can sign up for a spot in our next webinar. You can download a step-by-step guide to take your career from stuck to unstoppable. There's a lot of exciting things on there. So that's where they can go. And of course, I think my contact information is there too. So if they want to contact me directly, I'd love to hear from them.
Fantastic. And I'm going to include all that in the show notes. But wow. Yeah. We didn't expect that. We appreciate it.
Oh, no, absolutely. It just makes life so much easier for everybody. And I want this methodology to blow up. Like I want more people aligned and doing work they love and coming back to life and getting unplugged. And I think people want that too. So I'm happy to do it. And of course, there are ways that you can figure out if you want help or you want to work together in a more formal way. You can reach out to me and ask what that looks like. We've got tons of programs and services that provide step-by-step this process for people. So lots of opportunities there at tracytimm.com/mentor select.
Wow. Awesome. Certainly reach out to Tracy. We really appreciate all of the wisdom you share with us and just gave us a lot of practical advice. I took a lot of notes. So
thank you so much. I just appreciate the platform so much. You're doing a great thing for people, helping them really identify what they love and actually take action on it, which, there's no shortage of ideas in our world, but there is a shortage of people who are doers.
Big time.
I'm really excited for what you're putting out there for people. So thank you.
You know you're going to be a huge success because your heart's in the right place. So that's definitely the key. From
your mouth to God's ears, my friend.
It is. We'll have you back when you release your book.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. I would absolutely love that. It'd be a lot of fun.
All right, it's a date. Well, thanks, Tracy. Take care.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Wow, that was an outstanding interview with Tracy Timm. She gave us so much great information and just inspiration as well. Her journey is very inspiring, and I hope that you all feel more confident about whatever dreams you are currently following or dreams that you hope to follow. Certainly, Tracy is someone that can help you get to that point where you are feeling fulfilled and happy in your personal and professional life. Those both go hand in hand. Be sure to reach out to Tracy and let her know what resonated with you about this interview. Also be on the lookout for her book. I know it's going to be amazing. A New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller. Yeah, setting the expectations, Tracy, but I'll be sure to get a copy once it comes out. Well, on that note, we're done for this week. Be sure to come back next week so you can benefit from more great, high quality virtual mentorship from our guest mentors.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Mentor Select podcast, helping you identify and follow your passions. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit mentorselect.com and Mentor Select on social media. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review. We'll catch you next time.